All right, we got part 2 of DIY concrete path that I'm doing with a hand mixer. I was able to do this patio a couple of summers ago with had a concrete truck come here. I don't know why I didn't do this path. Should have, but I'm just gonna do it because it's such a small amount of concrete. Do it with a mixer. So what I've done so far, I dug down to the grade, got beneath all the loamy soil, and once I got there, I ran my string lines, and then I finally have the forms up. I've got a nice curve here with this PVC siding. I had some extra stuff laying around. It's pretty expensive. I know there's some other stuff you can use. That's what I had. And of course 2x4s, and I have 1/4 inch slope for every foot. So I've got a nice slope coming off the porch down this way. And I got a little bit of a slope down toward the patio. And then it slopes over that way so the water runs off the hill. I did get some gravel, some crusher run I call it. It compacts real nice. I did it with a hand tamper in a couple different layers because I needed quite a bit actually. So we put a layer down, compact it, and then put another layer on, compact it. And you got to bring it, make sure you bring it up to the bottom of your forms here on the side. Make sure the edges are really compact so they're not loose. You don't want the concrete, when you pour it, the wet concrete sneaking through. And now I just have to tie in my rebar, and I'll show you that in the next video. I use these old chunks of concrete to support them. I'm going to break those up a little bit smaller to support the rebar up, because you don't want your rebar sitting flat on the gravel. You want to make sure you get it up at least about halfway into the wet concrete. So that'll be my next video, and I'll just continue to add it to this. Thanks. All right, part 2, I got the rebar tied in. It's not exactly a perfect job, but it's enough. Home Depot only had 1/2 inch rebar. I usually get the one size smaller than that, 3/8 I think it is. So I got the rebar in, and I had a corner here, so 1/2 inch, hard to bend. I don't have a bender. I could have bent the 3/8, but didn't have that. So here's what I did, kind of a diagonal. It'll be enough to hold. Next is mixing the concrete and pouring it in, and I'll have that process on film also. All right, it's pour day. Got the mixer, got it all formed up, and got the rebar in. So we're gonna add 2 of these bags at a time. I got these pre-measured, about 3 quarts per bag. So 2 bags will be 2 of these jugs in. So I'll give you an update here as we make a little bit of progress. All right, so we got it all poured. You got all it mag floated out. I threw my color on here. It's a powdered release for the stamps. It's here. True Impressions brand. And once you throw that on, you start to put your stamps down, and every stamp has a certain pattern that you have to follow. So we're going to continue the pattern for this. It's too dry. Notice I'm waiting for this to dry a little bit more. There's still surface water on it. Good way to know when it's dry enough is you should be able to sink a couple fingers in, just a little bit. You can push your fingers way down in the concrete. It's not dry enough. So we're gonna keep going on this. All right, we just finished up stamping. I'm all the way, ran it. It looks good. Once we get that color hardener or powder release off and wash it and seal it, it'll match the color of the patio. But this took us exactly 2 hours to do. And it's, again, 3 feet by about 16 feet in length. And it ended up taking us 24 bags. I had 4 bags left. 24 bags of 80-pound concrete. And that's it. All right, here it is the next morning. Get the forms off. It came out pretty good. I just stripped off the powder release. So my next step is to get some Dawn dish soap and scrub it down and get all the release off. That way I can seal it later, which I'll have to let it dry before I seal it. And power wash it now and then move on with the sealer later this afternoon once it's dry. All right, here's the final pathway tied into the patio, which I am almost done sealing. I think it came out pretty good. I put a coat of solvent-based sealer on it this time instead of like a water-based acrylic sealant. I kind of like the look. It's a wet look, high gloss. So now I just have to do some landscaping here and fill these in. I think I'm gonna put a little flower bed right there. Definitely happy with the project overall. If you have any questions, just add to the comments, and be happy to help DIYers out there. Okay, the tools I used for the job is a mag float. This is what you want to smooth out the surface with. You pick these up at Home Depot, Curtis Lumber, wherever you, Menards. So when you're pouring the concrete, you go across the surface and you want to just get it smooth. You want to make sure you pay attention to the edges of the concrete. You want to push down on the edges. You also, on the forms, want to tap with a hammer to get all kind of the air pockets out. This is a groover you can use. I actually cut mine in with a diamond blade saw. I actually bought a diamond blade for my skill saw, and they're pretty cheap. They're $15. Just attach it, and you can cut your grooves in after your concrete dries. Cut it the next day before you seal it. Another tool I used, a string line for making sure you get the correct slope. And here's an edger that I use to get the edges round. And they do make these. These are things you hook the rebar into, put them flat, and you put your rebar on top. I use the rocks, as you saw in the video. It was a little bit easier. So those are really all the tools that I used once I started pouring the concrete. These are my stamps that I use. I bought these on Amazon. If you're going to do a beginner job, I recommend just using a texture stamp. They're easy to use. You don't have to create the pattern, which takes a little practice. And this pattern for these stamps was a limestone pattern. You're going to get stamps, make sure you get a floppy stamp. They're not as rigid, they bend for tight to reach places. And again, you can get those stamps on Amazon. Another tool I used was my concrete rake, super lightweight. You can move the concrete around. It makes the job a lot easier.